Well, hello and welcome to another conversation with one of the great authors on butterflyliving.org. And today we are going to chat with Elise Daly Parker. Hello, Elise.
Hello, Mary. It's so nice to be with you.
I'm so glad you're here. And I met Elise because she was a collaborator. Speak tongue-tied today on life-changing stories. And we got to work together a few years ago. There it is. And she wrote a great article for that. And then she came back to work alongside me and write this. I love your article.
Thank
It's
you.
very vulnerable. It's very real. And she writes about managing expectations, which we all have to do.
Hmm.
And we have lots of articles on butterfly living, but I love these ones that are really about personal development
Yeah.
connected with spiritual formation. It's so
Yes.
important. So
Yes.
tell us a little bit about what led you to write about this and to evaluate your expectations.
Okay. Well, I would say the first thing that really made me realize that I had expectations that weren't going to be met was my marriage. I had been with my husband for 5 years before we were married. We never lived together or anything like that. So marriage was a pretty big change. And I was pretty shocked to see that we were two broken people who had to figure out how to live together and love together. And I was so disappointed by my first year of marriage. I was like, I don't know if I've made the right decision. Like, I don't, this guy is an introvert and I'm an extrovert, although I don't even think we used those words back then. I've been married 41 plus years. Um, he wanted to hang out in the living room and read and write in his journal and like not talk to me all night. He was quite messy and I was completely over. There were just were so many things, but of course, mostly the personality differences between us became magnified. And I really was like, what the heck? And then, life continued to throw us curveballs. I was so excited about having a baby. I'm not even sure I mentioned this in the article, but I lost twins when I was 5 months pregnant.
Oh, oh
So
my
that was my
gosh.
first pregnancy. And that was, nothing like what I could have possibly imagined. I
Mhm.
couldn't imagine twins, and I really couldn't imagine losing them. And then I had my first baby, and she had failure to thrive. And then my stepdaughter moved in 2 weeks before my second baby was born. So life was just, and this was young,
Mhm.
late 20s to 30s. And then my husband was hit by a car. So we had one thing after the other, and some of them were really big, but lots of garden, what I call garden variety in between. You move someplace and you think you're just going to settle in and you're going to get to know everybody within 5 minutes. And it was my hometown, and I felt so lonely. So constant, actually dashed expectations, small and large. And it started to change me. And my husband used to call me his positive mental honey because I was very positive and kind of starry-eyed and a little too ideal. I had these
Mhm.
idealistic expectations. And so when things didn't happen the way I wanted them to, I found myself building resentment, anger, bitterness. And one time I could see myself becoming a person I didn't want to be, becoming short-tempered, becoming frustrated. And I think I described a little situation with my daughter in the kitchen when I was feeling particularly frustrated. And I just was like, okay, this is not who I want to be. No, and life is not what I want it to be. So what am I going to do about this? And that's kind of what really woke me up to. Oh, I have these idealized pictures, and they are made up. They are made up based on movies and what I thought was wrong and how I was going to make it right. And, there you are sitting in a heap of dashed expectations, thinking, okay, something's got to give here. And I don't want to be formed by this. So, what am I going to be formed by? So, that's,
That's so good though, because everyone can relate to that to some degree,
I think
right? Because
so.
when you
I think
enter
so.
into something new, a marriage, parenthood, a job,
Yeah.
of course we don't know what to expect because it's new.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a lot of times we don't label it as, oh gosh, I was expecting something different. And I'm
Yeah.
having this like confusion of how to merge this together. So you realize you needed to adjust your expectations,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
then you put together these 4 tips for the article, which I think are so helpful.
Yeah.
It's like expectations, it's a simple thought, but it's not easy. Like we
Well,
can get what you're saying, but
yeah.
to do and put these tips to practice takes some intentionality. So walk us
It
through those
does.
four
It
tips.
does. Yeah. And I was just going to say, I don't know when I came to really see, oh, these are expectations and they are being shattered. And what am I going to do about it? But
Mhm.
it's something that we figure out as we go along. But I do work with younger moms in Momco, which was MOPS. So I tend to formulate these ideas that I hope I can pass on. So, number one is hold expectations loosely. Life is dynamic, and we have, a modicum of control over what happens and what doesn't happen. There's lots of people in our lives. So, we can't I hated the word change, but I've done one word for the new year for years, and I felt the Lord leading me to embrace the word change. And I was like, no, no, I don't want to. But I realized, oh my gosh, God has good things on the other side. Just because I didn't think of it doesn't mean it's not good. So that's number one. Number two, beware of shooting all over yourself. I love that little expression, little naughty, SHOULDING, in case we're confused about what I just said. All the shoulds. I suffered with this so much as a young mom. I had so many expectations of myself. I should be able to look like this when I walk out the door. I should have a marriage like Sally has because they're so connected. I should keep my home like Sarah, etc., etc. And when we do that, we just like heap shame and
Oh,
disappointment on ourselves. It's terrible. So it's kind of like, okay, what am I saying to myself? Who am I comparing myself to? Let's lose this. Let's become aware of it and then let's lose it.
at that point, before you go to the next one, is
Yeah, yeah.
so important. And I think it's liberating. I
It
think that for
is.
mothers, like, wait, my child's not potty trained at 2, like everyone else.
Oh
All
my
of
God.
these little things, I think we should just stop.
We need to stop
Parenting and
it.
marriage and
Oh yeah. And
ever.
and also nobody's lives are exactly as they look. If you
That's right.
opened my door, it would be a different scenario than certainly what you see online and even what you see in a MOPS meeting or a MOMCO meeting. Life is life is hard. Life is
Yes.
challenging. Okay, so another one is trust that God has good plans for you. And that came really out of after all this stuff had happened. I really was feeling like this is all so random. Like where is God in all this? And I heard that wonderful scripture. For I know the plans I have for you, Jeremiah 29:11. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And I was like, oh, really? Okay, this isn't completely random. I'm forgetting I have a good God who is in charge of my life and I can trust him. And as I trusted him, I was able to trust him more. So I think that's really
Huge.
important as
Huge.
and faith formation, as you say. We don't learn this stuff without going through a lot of it. It's just the way it is,
I know.
which is kind of, we don't want to, but it is the way it is.
Like I
I
tell
love
my kids, you don't know what you don't know.
you don't. And Maya Angelou would say the same thing. And Joyce Myers used to say, you can't get to it if you don't go through it. And it's
That's the
true.
truth.
It really is a sad truth sometimes. And then four is all things work together for good. Now, that kind of piggybacks on trusting that God has good plans for you because I am much older now. I've lived in 41 years of marriage. I've been having children for, almost 40 years. And I now see, okay, this stuff comes together. And we will have, I think, till the day we die a moment where I was just on the phone with somebody recently and I was like recounting all the amazing things that were happening with all of my children. And I'm telling you, as soon as I hung up the phone, I heard from one and X was going on. Then I heard from another one and I have 4 kids and there's a lot going on. And so it changes day to day. But if you put it all together, and I learned things from the most difficult parts of my life that I never could have learned any other way. And I have to say, I do have, my marriage is not a fairy tale at all. It's very real. But I have so much of a better marriage than I ever could have imagined when I thought it was going to be like superficial and starry-eyed. It's just, we have a deep, committed, never-ending love for each other, no matter what happens. And that, I
Beautiful.
think, comes through pushing through a lot of tough stuff.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
not giving up.
Yeah. And not giving
Running the race. I just love that.
running
You
race.
have this quote, which I think ties it together nicely. You said, often the life we are meant to live
Hmm.
comes when we release the one we thought we'd live. Dashed expectations force us to adapt to a new normal that can be far better than anything we could have imagined.
Yeah, because our imaginations are sort of like one dimensional, even though we might have pretty pictures that go along with them. Life is so much richer than what we can imagine. Raising children is much more wonderful and much more difficult.
Yes.
Marriage, friendships. I mean, having good friendships is so much more complicated than it seems when you're in high school.
Right.
But actually, some of that same stuff revisits you when you're much older. So, yeah, it's just life is rich, rich, rich and full of challenges, and those challenges will shape us and form us. And I really do believe into the people that we're meant to be. Um, as long as, I will add a caveat, as long as we check what's going on with us along the way. And what I mean by that is, I mentioned my anger and my bitterness, and I was never an angry or bitter person. Quite frankly, I had a mother who was pretty angry a lot of the time, and I was like, I'll never be like that. And when I faced, well, my sisters, I remember after a lot of this stuff had happened, I said, you know what? I think I've gotten through this pretty well. And other people admired me for having, especially after my husband's accident. And my sister said to me, oh, really? Well, you've actually been pretty angry. And I was like, what? And I really had to face that. And I really needed help to get away from that, to change that. And I'm also a firm believer in having a good therapist
Yeah.
nearby for your
Well,
marriage, for
sometimes
your
you
personal
need
stuff.
that to get through some
Yeah.
trauma or, in my book I just wrote, Uniquely Made, one of the principles of core is Christ, our relationship with Christ, and then ourselves. Like we have got to know ourselves in
Yes.
order to connect with God. And so
It's
all the things you're talking about, know yourself, take an inventory. If something is keeping you stuck, get some help. So
yeah.
it's just so important, Elise. Your article is full of nuggets of truth. So I
Oh, thank you.
suggest, if you haven't read it, to hop on over to butterflyliving.org. So let us know, where are you? What are you working on? How can we connect with you?
Okay, so I am working on a memoir and I've written my first draft, which was such an experience because what I learned was I was writing a book about my husband and not about, and that's not what a memoir is. That's a biography. So, in working with other people, one in particular, Marion Roach Smith, who's a really good memoir coach, and the other students that I was going through the course with, I realized, oh, I need to be telling my story, not his story. His story is easier to tell than my story. But I'm realizing, Mary, as I wrote this article and as I've prepared a talk for Momco, my life really has been a lot about this expectation topic, which that's why, we don't know until we know. And I think that's really, at the end of the day, I think that's what this memoir is really about. What do you do when you find yourself with a life that looks nothing like what you imagined? How do you pick up the pieces? So that's the big thing that I'm working on. I've got a book, devotional. Oops, that
Back it
was
up a little bit, maybe.
or
Mm,
make it closer.
maybe put it.
Unshakable Peace in an Unsteady
Mm,
World.
there you go.
You can find it on Amazon, and I wrote it with three other women during the pandemic. So the world was pretty shaken, and we came together and wrote that book together. I've got, as you mentioned, an article in your book, a few other stories sprinkled throughout. My website is elisedalyparker.com, where you find out more about me as a coach than as a writer. I'm a professional editor. I've been an editor for 45 years. I'm a freelancer, but I have two main jobs as a magazine editor and a lot of stuff online. And as I said, I'm a certified life coach with a passion for vision boards, which I realized is kind of ironic since vision boards are kind of about putting your expectations on a board.
Yes, that's
But I
great.
also believe, right, I also believe if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. So we have to be intentional. Visions and dreams and expectations can be really good as long as, again, we hold them loosely. So I think
That's
that's
right.
kind
And
of
we
it.
adapt. I think you have to adapt. And I think I use the
Absolutely.
word pivot. So you have to realize where you're going one way and it's just either not what you imagined, not going where you think, and you have to be able to adapt and pivot.
Absolutely.
Sometimes
Oh
that's
my
where we're
gosh.
stuck.
That goes back to the change word that God forced me to look at a few years ago. It's just, I was holding on to my kids for dear life and they were leaving. And I was going to be miserable if I didn't let go. And again, I watch this with these moms that I work with all the time. If you hold on to the vision that you had of your marriage, of your husband, of your children, you're going to be upset. So you gotta release it. I mean, again, I really trusting God is a key to the whole thing because
Yes.
otherwise it feels really random.
Yes. Open hands. You have to open your hands and release to Him. Well,
Yes.
thank you for this conversation. If you want to read Elise's article, head over to butterflyliving.org or follow her at elisedalyparker.com. Thank you
Yes.
so much for being here.
Thank you, Mary. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you for being here.